The hip hop writer is a creator, composing understanding words of culture brilliance, powering a rebalance of the elements equally. Pages of rejuvenated reaffirmation. Simply the almighty leadership of insightful craft work that stands to build through any confrontation born to be. Yet his daily duty is as a journalist that questions properly, uses his ears for the good to filter the real, and as the art decays by dilution, he concentrates the best again and again, exposing it in the print. Today's journalist and tomorrow's historian he listens to share. Here is that necessary attempt executed again and again and again. This is the Power Right Show on S.STREET Media. This is your brother, the lone low life with the home sewn garment, the Boricua with the build, the true and living stepping and score, Sunyez Allah, aka S.STREET Low. And we are on S.STREET Media, the evolution of media. Every thought will have its own show, every idea will have its own episode, and every insight will be archived. That's how we do it at S.STREET Media. Wow. I was asked off air how much bullshit I'm going to get into now, though. The real question is, how much bullshit have you gotten yourself into that I got to talk over here? Right? We're supposed to be talking about hip-hop, good music and shit, but life sucks and it's horrible. We're in respect fake world. We just survived the dark ages of the visible renaissance. I can't find shit. I got to look for it. So here we are again. I'm going to tell you something. I like to start out with something like misnomers and media mutations. I'm going to talk about a media mutation because it's all, the problem with one of the things about hip hop, right? And that we see I'm going to call this a media mutation, but it really goes expansive, right? It's really hip hop's fault. And it's really our people's fault that everybody thinks that slang can now mean the truth of shit. You know what I mean? So like, white folk got slang for everything now. They think if they rock some hashtag, which is really slang, you just slanged up something, now it means something. And so one media mutation that is the world over is I hear young brothers and they'll go like this, I really like what he's about. He speaks his own truth. She speaks her own truth. There's only one truth. Okay? There's not, this nigga thinks 1 + 1 is 3. He's got his 1 + 1 is 4. I say 1 + 1 is 5 though. Let me tell you why. Right? So we have these ideas of ways of speaking that kind of mutate our ideas that really don't cover the real ideas that are being conveyed originally in the original slang, the way we were kicking it. But I'll say this: many people have unique insights to it that are mere presentation. You know what I mean? That merit presentation. So I'm not discounting people's reality. I'm saying that reality is not always the truth. You know what I mean? I'm saying that to say this, right? There's a couple of issues I want to bring up today, right? And it goes into a deeper understanding, so I want to give that out first. It goes into this, and it goes into that media mutation I just gave. There, it's over. That segment's done. But let's segue. It's bias versus perspective of understanding. A lot of stuff is dismissed by people as like, yo, that's your own bias. And then that's what mutates into people saying things like, I really respect his own truth. Because we want to dismiss everyone and say that they have a bias to everything, so nothing is really real. So we're actually, by saying all these wrong things, to pseudo respect people or dismiss them, what we're doing is we're getting rid of the mentality that is in every single human being somewhere, is their perspective upon what they look at. Everyone has a perspective of what they look at, right? The way I teach my students is the way I live. So the perspective of understanding is what? Some people might think, well, he's a 5%, so be the original man is God, so he walks around expecting to be worshipped. If people don't kneel at every verse, you know what I mean? Like, kneel, bitch, you know what I mean? And kneel, man. But that's really not what it is. We're in service of the people. We're in service of all creation that we are creating. But what I mean by perspective of understanding over someone just saying, oh, that's his bias, is that when the perspective of someone's understanding is right and exact, when it is truthful, based on truth, then that means that we have to respect that. What is the perspective of understanding and how I deal with things? The way I deal with things is one simple phrase that I was taught by my elders and that I live by. It is that the babies are the greatest. I'm going to repeat that. The babies are the greatest. So when we say the babies are the greatest, what are we saying though? We're saying that with every single angle of operation that we deal with, whenever we judge a situation, then we would say, wait, how would this affect the children? See, people go, well, no, he's into hip hop. This is full of cursing and stuff. It's totally irrelevant to children. No, it's not, because that children, when we talk about that, has a long range of things. And sometimes the most curses tell the most things. Sometimes they dress up the most important ideas that can't be understood to the youth. So why am I saying all this? Because you know what, today, on this particular day that this show is being recorded, it is oddly enough, right, with everything that is going on, and obviously I'm mentioning children because we're seeing in the news all these children being really taken from their families. We're seeing separation of children at the border. So what do we have here, right? Well, today is World Refugee Day, right? On World Refugee Day, this is the story that pops up. I just found the irony of it all just mind-blowing. And one of the interesting things about it is this, right? The last episode, I talked about a lack of humanity, and when humanity is lacking, morality is lost, and it is all replaced by ceremony. So you have like the ceremony of things, people acting like they're about stuff. You know what I mean? When it's really about their status or their particular status that they just posted. It's all about the hype. It's not really about people's sincerity. They don't do things without being acknowledged for it. You know what I mean? So I'm seeing a lack of sincerity and a lack of humanity again in another perspective. You know, I saw this thing, right? And I'm not going to mention them because they got enough shine. But I saw a video. It was an entire discussion, though. And I said in another episode, a different episode, that I think that colorism is one of the biggest issues in our community. And the roots of colorism really originate when the idea that different peoples of the black diaspora, black, Latino, right? Original people, black, brown, yellow, all of these different original people, who I call original people, they all suffer different situations. They all suffer different levels of oppression. Some are around today, they're not even seemingly dealing with oppression. Maybe some discrimination, maybe some prejudice, right? So it's all different levels. We tend to judge ourselves by the level of oppression that we're dealing with, and not necessarily based on who we are. If we ask people, you are a black American, what makes you that? And if you say you're a black American, it's because they made you a black American. You are here, you've been here, and you happen to be the color that they have told you are. But if we play that Curtis Mayfield, though, if you could choose a color, which one you choose? And then these are the same people that get mad, though, because other original peoples, the brown and the yellow, they got some of that choice, that allowance. It's not privilege, it's allowance to be less than their color, to be less than their shade, right? To get by a little bit. All of it is wrong, no, all of it causes conflict. But what I was seeing in this lack of humanity is I saw videos where there were supposed scholarly discussions on whether this immigration policy, I'll give you a title here, right? Do immigrant kids matter more than black kids? But all these immigrant kids I saw were black kids to me. They brown from the towns that I'm from, right? They're filled with frowns. They never been down with the white man. So what are we talking about here? You know what's interesting is that it shows that when we talk about levels of oppression, people don't even know the levels of oppression that other people have faced. They just see that they have more allowances that they are calling privileges and get by. So when you see, there's a professor, I'm going to read his name off here. He's a Dominican professor called Silvio Torres Salient, right? I love what he calls this, though. He says that when Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, especially Mexicans in this case, let's talk about the Mexicans because this is what all this border stuff is, right? When they come over here, they're not necessarily documented as refugees because There's no open government trying to kill them. No, it's much different. It's much more gray. Instead, their countries are being destroyed by the country that they go to. So look how crazy this sounds, though. You destroy my home, so then I go into your backyard to live. This is what the life of a Mexican immigrant is. You came to my home and helped destroy it, right? With the help of some of the people that live a little better in my own home, and help destroy it, help decay it, and make it impossible to live. And now I go to you. Silvio calls that immigration collateral. You see? The reason he uses the word collateral because it's war. It's collateral. Just like the reason Puerto Rico is a colony, and then all of a sudden they had to allow Puerto Ricans to become citizens because they broke up the entire community, the entire country for their own Operation Bootstrap. That's what it's called, Operation Bootstrap. And traded thousands of jobs for hundreds of jobs. And then now that extra surplus will only ruin the new operations they have going there. Some of these operations very familiar to you. Like the biopharmaceutical industry that makes billions upon billions of dollars, though, right? That's in every commercial, right? So where do these, I was called for your, since we want to use new terms, how about these neo-refugees? Necessarily wouldn't be called a refugee because what government were we talking? They were allowed by the government. The government didn't say, let's not let these Americans in. They kind of were strong-armed to it. So now when they make their journey into America to live, now they're suddenly people looking for privilege. People living for a better life. And you have it all wrong. This is diverse oppression. And I think that the people that live here, don't really understand the diversity of oppression. And it really sickens me that it always becomes the same story. They do something to a Puerto Rican, and the Dominican goes, well, that doesn't have anything to do with me. They do something to a Mexican, and the black person says, well, Mexicans, they hate us anyway, so that's good riddance to them. And this kind of mentality, though, is what actually augments their oppression. And somewhere, though, in the cartoon universe, right, if we cartooned and caricatured all of this oppression, there's a white man rubbing his hands here going, yo, shit is real, though. Like, it works real right here. Look at this. We got every corner fighting each other just the way we thought. No one's helping each other out. No one's seeing that it could all trickle down to any of them being taken. You know? So just think about that when you decide to lose your own humanity based on what you feel like you ought to be getting. Right? Now, on that note, we'll segue into hip-hop because today, at the date of this broadcast, right, it's also the anniversary of Prodigy's passing. So remembered in perfection, Prodigy. And I wanted to read something really quick about what I wrote for Prodigy. You know, he had his last album, Hegelian, right? It was Hegelian Dialectic, which, by the way, has a deep history to that, too. A lot of info on that, how he got the title and all that. But this was an unpublished review that I wrote, but actually, in many ways, it was unfinished. I just didn't like the way it came out. I didn't take the time to listen to it. And honestly, at the time I was writing it, where it would have been, relevant, like useful, would be during the year last year. And what happened was that I was tired. I was tired of writing about all of these returned MCs. I'm tired of writing immaculate eulogies of people that I was respecting this whole time, and now it's almost like informative to people that don't really know who they are, how great they were, what their contributions were. When, you know what, I like to write these pieces off the top, like I wrote for Thurston Howell or I wrote for Hellraiser. You like to write these things while they're here and appreciate these people. And hopefully on the Power Right show, as we continue, I'll be doing features on certain legends that, don't get that real detail of purview and retrospect on their careers. But I had written, this was some I wrote for his unpublished published review. I quoted a lyric from him, and I wanted to quote that lyric because I really thought it was great. This was a Prodigy lyric from that album, that last album. He said, let a black man live lively, right? Who lived the pain that surprises and agitates, terrorizes and paralyzes, just as if chattel slavery divided its mementos into his bloodstream, right? A lynching in every drop, a middle passage in every navigation through the vessels, a whole story of blood in a swinging sickle, defyingly looping bars from every cell of thought. I'm gonna read that again, right? Because I even introduced the shit. Let me tell you something. I'm gonna ego trip for a while right now. I just read something and it was dope to me, right? And that wasn't Prodigy's lyrics. That was my shit. How nice is that, though? I thought I was reading Prodigy's bars and shit, and I got it wrong, though. That's my shit right there. Salute to God, right? Salute to God. Rewind that. I said, let a black man live lively who lived the pain that surprises and agitates, terrorizes and paralyzes, just as if chattel slavery divided its mementos into his bloodstream. A lynching in every drop, a middle passage in every navigation through the vessels. A whole story of blood in the swinging sickle, defiantly looping bars from every cell of thought. This was my thought on Prodigy, man. This was like a creative thought I had on Prodigy. But I said this about his LP, though, right? As his last LP, where that last surge to share a growing knowledge of self continued, you are now listening to the sounds of God in the flesh. My lineage is ancient, and now one of the ancestors to be remembered in perfection. Prodigy is a legend of the Rakim school, and just as Guru took the voice to another level of depth, so did Prodigy. Pease was one of sinister reflection, unwavering resolve to survive savagery, and yet saw the greater enemy. He took the black on black hells to their utmost contradiction. He killed every nigga out there, but it all settled as dust of battles in the larger war, the one that nobody's safe from. On Hegelian, this last album, the beats are, as most of his solo works, filled with the more supposedly viable, more diluted tough that started in the dark ages, them 2000s, right? But every last track he speaks to us, we are living, not down as we are his casualties, right? Or whilst demanding we listen and continue to live stronger. This is a most honorable musical return to the essence, and that's what I had written somewhat about Prodigy. Pardon the beat up way of reading that, though. Like I said, as all of our artists, they return to the essence, it becomes more difficult for me to write them. I've written pieces that had to really go in depth about Sean P, Fife, all these people passing away, you know what I mean? And it's not people that we could just honor because they were great, but also other people, So it becomes very difficult, and I implore you to get that last album because it really is worthwhile. But also, to get to his whole catalog, it's all worth a listen, you know what I mean? And of course, the classic Mobb Deep records. But yo, this is going to all be a prelude to my guest, though, so we're going to go through this, right? And I want to give a little perspective to put him in the perspective of what he's doing, for you to see how consistent and amazing my guest is that I have today. And what's cool is that he's so far been off air right now, so you guys that are watching on Ustream aren't like just cheating a bit. Yeah, Soonies, we know who the fuck it is. Just tell us. He's sitting right next to you, right? Well, he's not, so you gotta wait, right? So, I wanted to go through the Wu legacy, and it was inspired to me for my guest, but also to put my guests in that context, but also to talk about it, that people aren't really talking about it, because the Wu legacy has gone kind of silent, though, with the major 9 guys, right? And just the 9 and a couple of the others, but I was watching Jizz's new program. If you go to Red Bull TV, I think it is, the website, you'll find his new show called Liquid Science. I think there's 8 episodes, and it's about him going through like scientific journeys in certain topics and seeing what science is bringing to it today, right? And of course, so I want to give my perspective on that to start with Jizza, right? About what he's doing, because he hasn't really released much music, but he has been great on the scientific front. You know what I mean? This episode was about climate change and the destruction of it, right? And I'm not asking Jizza to be militant and say, listen, it's all your fault, you industry and pollution and all that. He started to go with the scientists that are doing something related to it, or my problem was, in general, the reaction to it. So here's what I had to say. They had three things that I remember. They had first dealing with the sun, because the climate change will ruin everything, and you won't be able to see the sun. You won't get the sun's rays. So they had built out in the Lower East Side some panels that are solar panels and stuff. And I'm thinking that they're gonna have solar panels for the people and stuff. But there's only spics down here, so you don't need solar panels for them, right? So what happened is that they built these solar panels to basically collect sun and travel it almost half a mile down into this basic greenhouse that they have down there, to show that you could transport sunlight. That's one. Then the second one was bees, because bees are going extinct. About a quarter of the population has been, to me, I'd say mysteriously destroyed, because they gave no reason, even though we really know some of the reasons. And they're building a robotic bee. Now this is where I'm going, like, what the fuck, you know what I mean? A robotic bee to maybe replace the bees that are gone. And then the third one was storm defense. I call it storm defense because they had, in the University of Miami, they had all this rippling water, and it was hitting the makeshift buildings, and seeing what a hurricane level things could do and what type of edifices they could make to combat that, and the science of it. And I said, this is my problem, though. There's always a way of stating problems of the world where scientists have a completely reactionary response. Their work, that which is mostly investments that people invest with them, would be those that solve problems based on a continuing succession of the said development or regression, right? Or devolvement, right? That is, it's going to continue, so they have to react to this, right? So nothing is done to empower the people suffering, but all these three things I said, they all seem to be fail-safe devices for the wealthy upon the impending apocalypse, right? So, when there's no sunlight, everybody will die, but rich people will be able to transport some of that sun down into the depths of the underground. There's no more bees, so we don't care why the bees are gone, but we're going to make robot bees so we can have these little communities and stuff, right? And who's going to be able to make buildings tough enough to survive high-level hurricanes? So I'm seeing the Jizza do this stuff, but it's just more like a commercial for science. It seemed more like a commercial for scientific technology as opposed to the real scientific reasons, And I'm just plugging this idea, and to me, it's a question of the westernized approach and the need for technological advancement, as opposed to, let's say, Vandana Shiva's approach and her Earth University out in India, and this point of preserving localized farming, preserving the earth and its seed, resurrecting the earth's water, right? From a local and a pure level. So these two approaches are vastly different, and one to me isn't really helping the people. What I was seeing Jizza doing, I didn't see any of that really be able to be useful for the people, but it was interesting as hell. I'll tell you that. You know what I mean? So I'm definitely gonna watch the other shows, but the point is, in this Wu Legacy, Jizza has taken the intellect, the insight that he's about, and he's actually teaching and sharing things and ideas. So I really applaud that. It's really dope. But yes, the last show I talked about RZA, and I talked about his influences. So musically, RZA has been somewhat of a disappointment, because I say many of his experiments aren't fleshed out, right? But a lot of his experiments that RZA has actually are being in the middle of being jacked right now. If you go out there and don't like what RZA's done in this decade, the limited music he has, but you like everything Kanye did on his own album, oh boy, who the fuck is that though, right? I don't know if anybody's met anybody that likes that album, right? But who, right? The people in Wyoming like that shit, right? But what he did with Nas, right? A lot of those ideas were fleshed out by a lot of RZA songs. I'll give you examples, right? And the listener, I want you to go and listen to these. There's Humanity. There's a song called Humanity that he did with Bobby Ross Avila, right? That RZA did, and it was about, like, he had these great verses about the chi. It was a very spiritual verse. It was a lotus position RZA verse. You know what I mean? And the music on that, R&B, vocals, right, that tread softly, that go into the verses. This is all what Kanye was doing with Nas and stuff, and So if you compare drum sense, compare that rock pop ballad style that RZA kept going into, right? That sentiment, and compare those to what Kanye was giving Nas throughout that short album, and you see the similarities are over there. And then compare the RZA co-produced songs on, the Twisted Dark Fantasy album and the others, and that terrible album, the Jay-Z and Kanye shit that they put out though. But aside from the Otis Redding sample, right? But if you go through those and look at RZA's contributions there, you'll see that a lot of and RZA's work, you'll see that a lot of RZA's softer work is exactly what Kanye's doing. You see how we praise certain things by certain people, but not others though. Say It All sucks down the road, or Say It All has some potential. To me, it's all experiments though. Many of them failed though. More of them failed than not. But then we have this though, about the Wu legacy. We have Ghostface, right? Not a lot of albums this decade, right? Some really good ones though. But I want to make note of this though. What makes it different for artists is that you have the covert and the overt influence of just biting, straight up biting, or using things that Ghostface has done. And I'm going to name people might get mad. But it's an actual fact that these three are the best examples of it. Bronson, obviously. Come on, that's his biting. Let's put that on the side. We'll talk about that another day. All right? Another day, I don't want to get mad, right? But then you have Westside Gunn. He's going to release an album, this week. By the time you hear this, it's already out, called Supreme Blientel. Okay. All right, that's enough, and every song he does starts out, hey yo, like the influence is grossly there. And then when they get beats that are just like what he would do. Just because they're high quality beats doesn't mean that the influence isn't immensely there. And then you have the style, the nature of Ghostface, the ladies' man nature of Ghostface Killer, the swagger. I'm saying that as European as possible, the swagger, right? That's all over Rock Marciano's work. That can't be denied. You cannot listen to Rock Marciano and say that's Ghostface. That's the Ghostface influence is there. It's absolutely there in almost every way. It doesn't mean that his albums aren't great. It doesn't mean that they're not worth listening to. But if you're Ghostface Killer, you're like, how do I come out with something if everybody's doing my shit? Think about it in that perspective. You know what I mean? Because even if you do it great like Rock Marciano, or you do it pathetically like Bronson, it still hampers the artist that came out with it first. And this is why artists that are out for a long time, they always have to try to reinvent themselves, sometimes prematurely, like RZA, right? So then we have, I'm just going down the line, then we have Method Man, lots of commercial efforts, TV fare as a host, the actor. I think as an MC, he really has excelled because the stuff he did on that Mathematics album took it to another level. He was sharp on that. Sharp as a tack right there. Raekwon's been strong, even though he's been a little bit more cliche, like just battle bars, nothing really like detailed. But his stuff has been consistent. U-God. I don't have a problem with U-God, but boy, I'm having trouble finishing that autobiography though. Because he started to talk about the gods and he started to talk about the knowledge and stuff. But then he got locked up and all of a sudden the God somewhere. Is he in the studio? Is he? Okay, it's still me. So he starts talking about God. He starts talking about the 12-step program. God is doing this. So I'm like, which God are you talking about? Yo, even if you don't bear witness to this knowledge of self that I've been kicking, what the hell is he talking about? Like, you got to have an editor to help out with this stuff, right? He can't be up with Jesus and then down back with the gods. That's a very confusing read. But it's actually a really entertaining book, though, and there's a lot of good insights. I'm just being an ass about it. But here's another development, though. Over time, artists, they tend to be less hard-hitting over time, and they tend to cross over a little bit in being less confrontational. And I would have to put Inspector Deck there. One of the most prolific of those original 9, but he's been doing all of his work this decade with Czarface. That's with him, 7L, and Esoteric. And I'm sorry, but what does Esoteric have to say on the mic? There's one of the greatest MCs of all time with one of the greatest and deepest groups of all time. And he decides to make a group with him and talk with him. It's just bars. It's just, hey, I rap better than you. I do this. I hype this, and the flow is always on point. It's like a how to rap book part 3, right? If they're making another one, right? It's got all the balls on point, right? But when I hear Esoteric, you tell me. Listen to the last one with MF Doom. Esoteric is doing Jay-Z. He's doing the fast couplets of 1996 Jay-Z. And he's even doing this, the pretty hiccup variation. And so, like, so inspect. Well, why? Why do you do that? This is why I tried to eliminate Jay-Z from the culture to see what happens, though. Because you don't start everything. And here's my guest. And, right? I hate that shit. Let's demolish that. What happened to you? What happened in the studio? Is that a knob that you press? Do you do that on your own? So, I have a problem with that. And it's there. You can't deny it. You can't deny it. It's there. But, then you got Master Killer, who I think has been exceptional. Loyalty is Royalty is banging. And I think that the cleverness of Master Killer is that he gives us hardcore albums, but he actually hides progressive ideas in it or like musical ideas. A little bit forays into more like 90s R&B or forays into reggae and stuff like that. So I think it's dope. No problem with Master Killer, you know what I mean? But on a side note, I think that the two of the three, and this will lead into my guest, 2 of the 3 that go outside of the box here of the Wu legacy, I think need to be mentioned. I may be missing some. Gotta be Killer Priest. He's not released that much stuff, but he's been releasing things in chunks, like double album here. Like the last thing he released was the Psychic World of Walter Reed Part 2, and he just released like a double LP disguised as a mixtape, and it was like 34 songs he just threw out there for free. Just threw it out there. You can look it up online. It's free, and just lyrical quality just tossed at us like nothing. And I thought it was impeccable. I think everything Killer Priest does is poetry, real poetry, man. But and then you have, and this is an immediate segue to the first segue to my guest. You have Bronze Nation. You have Bronze Nazareth and everything his clique has been doing with his inspired blues soul productions. And he's produced a lot of albums this decade. Really a lot of albums this decade. You know what I mean? Has persevered through the death of his brother, Kevlar 7, and continues to make great works. And I think that because he's such a lyricist, because of all these things, he's really, advanced nicely. But if I had to say the most progressive and the most consistent excellence of any Wu affiliate that we have in this decade, right? And peace to all the brothers walking in and passing me. Come on in, brothers. But to me, the most progressive that we have is my guest, and I'm gonna read something to you that I wrote about my guest, and it'll introduce him. This is an art piece that I wrote for his last album, and I said this. I said, to be adorned and walk is to be scorned and stalked. But burnt bridges from principled fires keep one's lab lonely and prolific. Learning revolution, collecting trumps of tiny pebbles to throw at Operation Bootstrap. The people's righteous cooperation is all in there, in one coon to be snapped. Secrets from the elders were to pull the plug out with 2 hands, fast and build to do more. Achieve with will, word is bond those arrears. You forsake too many appears. Scolding with jewels, these gifts scald into wax. With Puerto Rican terrorists, quote Don Pacino Hadith. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was some Don Pacino's last album called Fire God. I wrote that for him. And today, my guest is Don Pacino, my brother Don Pacino. He has the album coming out, and we're here to build on that. Peace almighty.
Peace. How you doing, brother?
All right, everything's peace, yeah. Let my guest strap up the headphones. All right. Yeah, man, it's great to build with you again, Dom.
Yes, brother. Definitely, it's good to be here. Good to see you, man. Always good to see you. Appreciate all the love, man. All the big love and the great writings, man. You put down, man.
Oh man,
Very
yeah.
dope.
Like I said, I always tell people if there wasn't great work, I'd have to write poetry about some other shit. You know what I mean? It'd have to be about something else, and I wouldn't be able to talk about music the way I love it. You know what I mean? I'd be talking about old music. But I wasn't kidding when I said that. I call this decade, I call this decade the invisible renaissance, right? And it's almost over. Like, technically, there's just the end of this year and then next year. And, man, you've been prolific as fuck in this decade.
Man, I don't know, man. I've been telling dudes lately, I'm trying to do Tupac numbers. and when I say that, I mean, if you look at the body of work he put out in the age span, because he had movies, albums galore, and they were still dropping a couple of albums after he was gone. That's how much work he put in. He was just going to booth and work. So my thing is I'm just trying to work. I'm just trying to work, and my legacy is going to be what it's going to be. But I got to do, I'm doing what I love to do, A, and B, I just, I love being creative, and I like putting that out into the world, you know what I mean?
Let me give the listeners something about that catalog, and to flesh out this idea that you just said. To me, the Don Pacino catalog is primarily built on warrior anthems. And if you dismiss that, you're a bitch, because that's what this world needs, right? This catalog is filled with long players that are classics, like the Killer Army albums, to name one, special duets, the Terraband albums, the war poetry, right? And we got more to come with that. The sleeper gems like Unreleased, The Last Armageddon, the big sellers like Rice and Beans, the essential greats like Terrorist Hymn 2, Gemini Mine, and the memorable debut, Terrorist Hymn, which, by the way, the reason I say memorable also is because, to me, I find that to be one of the independent album, like significant independent albums. One of the people that set off the independent movement. We're going to talk about that. But along with greats like Sadat X, KRS, Thurston Howell III, Madlib, the Pacino catalog is qualitative and long as fuck. Every next LP are now just moments of his next ideas. This is how I see it. The last one, Fire God, early this year, I called it an edutained sentiment of warring anthems. So now that you're making all this, right? Bugsy told me in that last show that when he makes albums, he tries to look at the other ones and say, yo, how could I do it better than that one? But when you have a catalog this long, though, what is the perspective when you get into each album?
I don't know. You know what it is we grow and we live in life out here. So every year is new experiences. I had what, 2 grandchildren over the past 2 years. Past 3 years. I have a 3-year-old grandson and I got a 6-month-old. So I'm going through granddaddy situations now. That's a whole different wisdom that I'm bringing. You know what I'm saying? So like I said, as long as you grow, you go in there and you're writing about what's going on in immediate. You know what I mean? What's going on? That's how I'm doing it. And I'm getting new ideas, or I've been going green lately when I record. That's something that probably dudes not going to try to use the line and going green. I'm going green. When I say going green, I don't even write my music down no more on paper. I go in there and I hit the record button on the Pro Tools in my boxes. I recorded my whole last album dolo. No engineer, no nothing. How about that? I got the studio in the crib. I do what I want to do. I wake up in the morning, I have a boner on. You know what I mean? Go in there and feel like I want to rock something right now. Rock it. Just like that.
Right.
Pour me a little iced tea. You know what I mean? Throw us a little dry, boom. Go back in there and do it. I'm going green. No paper. Just hit. I do 4 bars. Punch the next bar. Just think of it right in my head right there. What's going to sound real nasty coming out of that? This whole war poetry.
Right. All right, we got a little technical difficulties, but yeah, going green is definitely gonna be like some dope shit. I think he's gonna bite that shit. Yeah.
They talking about recycled paper, but that's still chemicals going in the air when you're doing that recycling.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I'm back. I think I'm back. I was back. Yo, yeah, I'm back.
Yeah, he's back.
That one was sounding crispy though. You had that one sounding good before it went down, man, down. Yeah. So yeah, man, like I said, going green, that's the new process for me, man. I'm just going in there, punching every 6. I'm gonna get 6 bars out of one and just punch it in, going in.
Is this helping because of the speed? Like you won't lose an idea?
Yeah, that's another thing. Oh, I'm lazy. I'm gonna keep it real. I'm tired of writing. I'm tired of writing things down. I got these ideas. They're fresh. They're new. Unless I get some dope ideas, I might be in the V or something where you can't. You're not in the studio. That's a different story. I still, you know, I'm not going fully green yet. You know what I'm saying?
But
Like
what
90.
theoretically, then nobody does, right?
Nobody's
Because
doing
you
it.
have ideas.
You got those
everywhere,
ideas,
yeah.
you got to jot them down. You
Right,
know what I
right.
mean? But to be honest with you, most of my creation gets done in the studio.
Mm.
I'm rarely doing it like that. Usually, you know, unless I go on the road. If I'm doing a show and I'm in another state and I'm in a hotel and I'm like, you know, drinking. I got, you know, Bugsy's getting wild. You know, the vibe is there. It's like, yeah, you know,
Right,
and
right.
listening to beats. We might have just got a new batch, you know, something like that. But
Mm.
you know, that's the process, man. Right now, it's just like I said. So for each album, to answer your question, man, is a different time in my life, different, you know, and I'm just creating based off what, you know, unless I set like with this world poetry thing that I got going on, it's like a whole idea, it's a whole concept now. I get Bronze together and we just create it's straight raw militant vibe, and then I'm only building off of his production now. So you got to understand that kind of puts me in a box with him to just create off of that. Although he'll give me a variety of sounds, it's still a Bronze sound.
Mm.
Whereas if you hear Fire God, as you're talking about, you'll
Right,
hear
very diverse
very
sound, yeah.
which I like. I feel like I'm free. I want to get beats from everywhere, all around the world. Someone in Portugal might want to send me a beat tomorrow. He gets this. He got some weird violin and whatever. You know, they bring different elements, which gives me different, you know, energy to produce music.
Got you.
So it's crazy, man. You know, that's like my process. But with this is like we got this sound that we capture. We go in there. It's like going to boot camp. We're gonna go make this creation. We're gonna give this to the hardcore fan base, and that's their food. Here you go. There's your plate for the year. Beat it. You know what I mean? And now let the terrorist do what he likes to do.
Well, I want to get into
You
war
know?
poetry too, but I got to go back into some of these other albums because we just had Fire God, right?
Yeah.
And the last time I been with you, that when we was on Classic Storm Radio with Toshi, right? DJ Salute DJ Toshi, right? You were saying to me that, you know, this next one, because Fire God was about to get done,
Yeah.
you were saying, yo, I want to get deeper on some issues and stuff. And man, you got deeper on it.
Yeah.
You know, you had a lot of deep tracks, and some of them I want to speak about specifically later regarding other issues. I'm just gonna quote some bars later, you know,
of course,
shit.
yeah.
But you know, when it comes to the sound, when it comes to deeper issues and stuff like that, I didn't find a preachiness. I didn't find any didactic stuff. Like, you know, like it didn't turn into an after school Don Pacino event. You know what I mean?
Nah, that's you know, it's how you get your wisdom across. First of all, like they say you can get more with honey than you can get with you know, you ever heard that term? They say you can like basically give it to them a little with a spoonful of honey.
bees
You know
with
what I
honey,
mean?
right.
Yeah. So you know what I mean. So that's how it is. And I think it's even like I heard you speaking about the Jizza thing, and you know, you said you felt a certain way about that. I think that he's giving them the honey, so it's more people can kind of like pay attention. I know what you're saying.
Oh yeah.
But it was like
I was definitely being super ultra critical because I
it's
wanted
cool.
to give my perspective.
I did the knowledge too.
You
I
know
thought
what I
it
mean?
was interesting,
Yeah.
and I seen him being a little more subtle. He wasn't saying like, but he tried to throw something at him like, well, you know, the dude was saying something about the living forever. He says, no, I disagree. I think that we all have souls. He tried to still throw his little thing in there. That was as deep as I heard him get as far as trying to get his, you know.
Because you know, in those kind of shows, they have such a restricted format.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that they have it so they, you know, whoever's
I don't
hosting
know.
won't
I feel
step
a
out
little
the
different.
box.
I think that they want to do it that way to sell it. I think that nowadays you can say pretty much anything you want. A lot of other entertainers proved it on the air.
That's true,
reckless.
too.
You can get Dave Chappelle he'll say the wildest, you know, shit that you possibly say. You can get anybody, other comedians or whatever. They saying ruthless shit. Movies are getting ruthless and saying crazy shit. So I don't know that. I just think that people when you're starting to try to get into that thing, this is new for Jizza. That he wants to play it cool and at least start getting
Get
his show.
acclimated to it. Though.
That,
you know what? That's a good
It's
point.
politics,
That's
you
a
know,
good
a lot of
point. And
things
off the
being
first, I was just watching the first episode. I'm gonna have to do the knowledge to the other ones to see that progression. You know what I mean?
And the reason for the bees thing, that was because the climate is changing and messing up the vegetation, which in return is what we
And they
need for the
they need more bees.
politics.
Yeah.
So that was
yeah.
the science behind that shit.
Absolutely. You know, when we talk about album making, right? Bugsy had told me that we talk about beat picking and stuff, right? And obviously, like, it has to go to you about beat picking because you know it's easy. Like, Bronze is great. You know, he's gonna have something good in there. If you don't pick something from him, well, what are you listening to? But it's not easy picking beats.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Because there's two things to me. A lot of people pick good beats, but there'll be samples that everybody else used already. So, but a lot of rappers are very unaware of music history. So they end up picking samples that everybody's used. This rarely happens with you. You know what I mean?
I told you, I just actually for something new. I'm already 3 in on a new project. That's how crazy I am. Bugsy's like, yo, you got to take a break, bro. I was like, I just can't turn it off. He says, like, you got to turn it off, man. But I just picked something with the Mission Impossible. The Mission Impossible beat, which you heard that sample 100 times. But it's something about it just gave me, a vibe or whatever, and I had to go in on it. But I don't usually do that. And then Ain't No Sunshine to, you heard that 100 times.
Bill Withers and all that.
And I turned that down about 5 times from 5 different producers. It's so dope, though. The sample's so dope, but it's so... it's used, it's it's saturated.
Right.
So
I
had to turn certain things. I had to turn down. And in Mission Impossible, I did a feature for a dude out in London recently. My dude, shout out to Shaka Amazulu. I did something for him, and he had the Mission sample, but my other man did it, and I like the way he flipped it a little harder. They both dope, but I said I'm gonna have to do something to this, man. So sometimes you gotta do it, but yeah, I do a good job of staying away from that. I like to get shit you can't tell where the sample came from, and you know what I mean, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And mind you, not even going into drums, because a lot of people's drums are like the same
that's
drums
the bad
all
thing.
the time.
That's the most annoying thing. Like I tell producers, like I like switch ups. I don't like no monotonous beats no more. I don't want the sample to be like, all right, for instance, we talking about the Kanye Nas thing. What's the Slick Rick joint? Shot the kid. All right, let's give it a break already. We heard this shit. Like I can't do it. Like, and you a little more creative than that, bro. Like let's do a little something different, then come back to it. Like so that's like
and in the sense that like. Sometimes with producers, you always use producers that like, yo, who is this guy? And then they become household because like, yo, he's dope. And people have expectations about producers that have not really proven themselves as real like drum diggers. Like for example, Kanye has a lot of good music on his stuff. But he's not really like a drum digger. He doesn't really have lots of drums that he fucks with.
I heard him do some good stuff on his earlier, stuff, and I thought he was creative because he was breaking it down and throwing instruments, and the switches and the transitions were dope. But now I think he's just simplified. I think he's just doing. I think his head is up his ass that far, where he feels like whatever he puts down, it's the law now. I'm Kanye.
Right? Yeah, it's fine.
I'm the #1 entertainer in the world. That's his mentality. That's cool. But don't get too ahead of yourself.
With producers, you almost have like this Miles Davis approach, because Miles Davis' history is always picking that next great band member, next great trumpet guy, Wayne Shorter, then Herbie Hancock, then all these guys. And when people go like, if I see Dash somewhere else, or I see Dun Easy, if I see these guys different, I say, oh yeah, he made good beats because of what I heard with you. So if he does it with somebody else, I'm gonna be like, oh man, I need to press play on this because
you might want to give it a listen.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a listen because
I put him on a
brought
platform
that out there.
Where, I brightened him up.
Right.
No, it's real like that. That's with anything. I think that's with the history of anything.
But when you're doing all these albums, all this work, you've got to be listening to hundreds of beats. How do you keep the ear from being oversaturated? It's like a person that works in a
I'm gonna tell you how that
cologne
works.
shop or something, right?
I'm gonna tell you how that works. That's why I'm very picky. If you've seen the amount of beats I get submitted to me and the amount that I use, which still seems big to you because I'm putting out so much work.
Right. But it's not. It's a small amount compared, right?
It's like, you know what? I listened to it the first time. Most of it's chopped liver to me. I'd be like, I'm done with it.
Right.
Then I drink something, crack a bottle, go back the next day, put it on again. I'm like. And I start getting the shit face on, on certain
Are there
ones.
beats that you were like, that you kind of threw it away?
I passed
and
on
then,
beats
and then you went back and were like,
then they were hit.
This isn't as bad as I thought.
Yeah,
it
works that way. So you got to. What I learned is that it might not hit you initially, but it'll hit you eventually. So you got to give it all a shot. Some just will never hit you. Bugsy said that too. That was a little Bugsy little slogan. I gave him so many slogans. Now I'm gonna use his. He's used 100 of mine. I told him,
I had a slogan I had to throw at you.
I'm gonna have to charge you now, publishing all my lines you're using, bro. They think it's yours now. It's all mine. It's my material.
So we got the green one today.
Green, that's original. Yeah,
he got one. He gave me one that you gave him.
What's that?
When we talk about beat picking, and he said that and I said, how do you pick a beat? He said you gotta listen to the protein of it.
Oh, you gotta gather the protein.
Yeah, gather the protein. So I'm like, aside from saying pause, but what's for you? Your definition, because I could be thinking like bass line or drum. What's the protein for you in the beat?
Protein's just the extracted version of the good shit that you need to do what you need to do lyrically. It's a combination plate, to answer your question. Is the drum, is the kick, the hi-hat, the bass and the sample all blended together that makes it sound like they're together, they're inside of each other. You ever hear a sample when someone does it but the drum sound and it's like it's
Yeah,
like
everything sounds like separate tracks.
separate. You don't want to hear that. You're like, you can't get in. But then when you hear it mixed together, it's like, and you're hearing that gin crack hard, then it's like, yeah. So that's the protein, and not everything got it. Not every beat, not every producer can produce it. You know what I mean? And everybody got their different styles and people that they like, and you got to
When you deal with a producer, are there because these are young kids, a lot of young brothers that you're elevating to another level, give them that experience. With people that you're working with, right? After a little bit of time, do you go like, listen, I love this one, but can you do this to the beat?
Oh, I have to. Yeah, with some of the young boys that I like to. I personally, I don't want to be tutoring nobody in this point in my.
Yeah, and that's what I mean.
Life.
Yeah, because it's a lot of work.
But
to
if
tell
I really
them to
like
go back.
a sample and I like what he did with it, but it just needs to be certain things broughtened
Like
up.
one-
Drums need to be a little harder hitting, or add a little bass line here. Your bass line's whack. Pull that bass line off and ride it like that. I'll do it.
Right.
I've done it.
Because I asked you this. You got your own studio. You've told me before, like with the War Poetry, the first one. These are albums that you're arranging yourself. Like these are your arrangements.
Yeah.
So then you have a play in like, oh, these drums are not kicking the way they're supposed to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or this bass line is not thick enough. It's not engulfing me enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's the good thing of the mix, Then I mean, like Dash, actually, my guy in Spain, he's been mixing a lot of my projects. He's dope sound, Alchemist, like he's dope with it. I just been letting him, I just tell him what to do, what I need done, lift this bass up, lift this drum up or what have you, and he's good with following what needs to be done. You know what I mean? Following the lead. So that's that as far as that goes. But I'm not trying to get nothing. Like I said, I'm not trying to tutor dudes. You either got that heat. It's so much stuff getting submitted to me, so I can't be like, I don't have time to do all of that. And it's so much heat. There's some dope producers out there right now on the up and coming, and I'm working with them. You know what I mean? Right now.
I want to let Fire God go with this last point and tie it into the situation of Puerto Rico. And I want to put in perspective this, though. I had made a serious point in one of the last episodes, the 46, 45, and counting, horribly, and counting. But put in perspective to the listener. When I speak to my family here, and I say, hey, have you heard any word of anyone? There's no word. So this is the situation, like there's no word. So like there was and when you were talking about more stuff that you were talking about, and this was before that realization, but this was after the hurricane, and we knew it was bad.
Yeah.
Everybody else thought it wasn't,
Yeah.
But you had these great lines though that put it all historically into perspective. I loved it. The song "Knowledge Be Born." Obviously, that's got to be one of my favorite songs in the canon. But you said Thanksgiving. Yeah, I'm thankful for living. Don't appreciate the raping of the women and slaughtering children. Came to my land, they had nothing but a book. They took everything, left us with a book, right? Now how the fuck that look? Brainwashed like a tsunami or hurricane that wiped out my people. Now the mental's forever stained, cocksucker. Now give us our independence. If there's no equality, why the fuck you pretended? Blood sucking us for all our resources. You're symbolic to that wicked death that rode on pale horses. I think I skewed one word. And of course, I did not flow it like him. Don't think I imitated him at all.
It sound good though.
Yeah, okay.
It didn't sound too bad.
We put those tap drums. Yeah, just give me a drum tap. But there are a couple of things in there. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of artists that are Puerto Rican though are not out there saying, "Yo, we need to be independent." Most of them are like, "Oh no, we need help, this and that." But when you go over there, if you look in the stories, like Naomi Klein has a book out about her experience there and how people have made their own solar panels, how they've done things, how they found their own electricity, their own water. We saw things what Crazy Legs was doing and going down there. Our people know how to survive. And if they were allowed to use their land.
Help each other, man.
Yeah.
Everyone's always looking for feeling you need help elsewhere and going elsewhere. And that's how you get tricked, and all the trickery begins because they know you need help. Now you're vulnerable. When you go to somebody with your hand out, you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you come together with your brothers and you come with a plan to get better, it's a different story because there's an equality thing. You're all looking for that together. You understand what I'm saying? And I think that's a lot of the problem with it.
I think so too.
I think we got enough resources, of all the power rules came together, man, that island could be saved.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's ridiculous. So many superstar ridiculous money, crazy,
absolutely,
wow. You just can't do nothing.
And if the money went to the right place, because all I saw in the PR program was saying, tourism, but we need people on the ground, not just people going in hotels and buying up what they want to buy from our shit, take
the
our land
culture is
from
going to
us,
get lost if we don't go over there and start buying
absolutely,
that land, start buying that land
and
back.
I mention that because when you say stuff like that, you, Don Pacino, who's also one of the really, to me, legendary independent artists. You know what's funny? There's a lot of other guys that get a lot of credit for being independent, like great ones like Cormega with the True Meaning and his albums. But your albums are before that. And you was going independent, leaving majors when not in the 2000s, but in the late 90s.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And over the years, I've told you, it's gotten better for you. The more independent you achieve, the stronger the music has gotten. You know what I mean? And that's something for the listener to think about. You know, when we talk about independence, what that really means, because there's independence in all types of levels. But to put this here, right? And I had another. We're talking about, before we're gonna end on War Poetry too, but only selling the physicals, right? You know, Rock Marciano tweeted though when he released Rosebud's Revenge 2, and then he was talking about he was gonna only sell it for $30, and he was only gonna give it out on his website, and he was saying that he got over 3 million streams of the first Rosebud, and he got like sneaker money. That's what he said.
Is that where I read that? You posted
that? Was a tweet that he had,
and you retweeted. Did I see?
I don't think I retweeted.
Oh, I
that.
seen it somewhere. Then
a lot of people
came across my
that.
radar. Yeah,
I didn't retweet that.
No, okay.
But he said that, like, you know, all these streams and it wasn't paying shit. So you have been only selling physicals and maybe streaming it later down the line.
Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And I'm not even doing that now. See, certain things I don't mess with. Like I option out for Spotify and stuff like that, only because you get nothing. You know, it's nothing. I mean, I'm gonna give you an example. Taylor Swift don't mess with Spotify, and she's through the roof. She's one of the top streamers, period. And she don't mess with them only because you get fragments of $1. Fragments. For all this, and if the people can just listen. What are we working for here?
Right.
Especially on an indie level. She's still, I'm gonna give it to you. She's so big that even her streaming, when she puts her album out, she's making like 30 million on the album streaming, and that's Taylor Swift. Now, what you think? You know what I'm saying? That's how my news. So it's almost like you're thinking in your head, oh, that might be worth it, 30 mil. But you know how much that would have got in sales of what she's doing?
Right. Because it's billions.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's
yeah.
like ridiculous. And then like when it comes to indie, like say Rock Marciano, 3 million seems like a lot to people. Like, wow, that's like, you know,
right. But
that's
3
triple
million
platinum. You know?
Yeah.
But not in streams. It's not even $1. It's not even a penny. It's a fragment of a penny. You know what I'm saying? So now you're looking at, like you said, sneaker money, and you're like, wow, all this work? I'd rather do this myself and stream and sell $1 per stream or whatever on my own personal web. And that's what I learned. See, that's why I did my thing. My thing wasn't to be, you know, my story was to be sold, not to be told. But my thing is this. I had to do some reevaluation within my company, and I'm seeing how the streams are going. People are like, oh, the new way is the downloads and all that. Let me stop. When you come from the 90s, from golden era, and you got hardcore fans that they got the whole Wu-Tang catalog in CD. They want to continue that. You understand what I'm saying? They don't want to buy now the new Wu-Tang album just digitally. They want to have it to add near their Wu-Tang Forever, their 36 Chambers, their Old Dirty Bastard, everything.
Exactly.
So same thing with that. I come from that era.
Now tell me about War Poetry 2 as we fade out of this episode here.
Yeah. So yeah,
we had a lot of features on War Poetry too. What do you got on War Poetry? Because the snippet sounded crazy.
Let's see who I got, man. I got the Snow Goons from. They produced one of the bonus tracks from Germany. Got those brothers on there. They, you know, I'm pretty sure y'all know about the Snow Goons.
Oh, definitely.
Let me see who I got on there. I got my Killer Army brothers. I got Ninth Prince. I got Shogun the Assassin. Who else I got? Of course, I got Bugsy the God on there. Tragedy Gaddafi, shout out Queensbridge.
Peace to the God.
I got the Fly Hooligan from UK. He's doing his thing too.
Right. Triple Darkness brother, right? Part of that crew.
Yeah. Okay. And I might be missing some. I got my dude Live Brim. I got this dude, this vocalist Jay Freeman. He's dope. A young kid, 18 years old, from Chicago, I believe. And
were you trying to do something different on War Poetry 2, or just continue with that intensity? Because the snippets has such a rhyme intensity.
Oh yeah,
they were,
so like a couple of my dudes were saying it
like you broke out of a window. Like every track you broke out of a window. You know.
Well, I'm trying to bring them back to a little bit of the Terror Is Him.
Gotcha.
The straight rapid fire, just you can't even breathe in between bars. It's just blah blah blah, just hitting you in the head.
Right,
but all hardcore lyrical content, you know what I mean? Bum rush. But I got some things that's a little slow on there too. You'll hear, you know.
Right.
I got some, you know, heartfelt, crazy, you know, dope stuff. You know, I got this joint on there called Kite to Killer, which is for my dude Killer locked up doing 17.
Oh, that's peace.
You know what I mean?
That's
and,
peace.
And I'm talking about a little story real briefly of me being the only one in court when he got sentenced, and it's deep, you know what I mean? So it's a real dope, heartfelt joint, you know what I mean? Shout out to my dude. I didn't get to write him, so I wrote him on the album.
That's dope.
You know what I mean?
That's dope.
So that's that. You know, I wrote him last time he did his bid, but he's doing back-to-back bids on me. In my head, I'm working out here. So the love is there, and I had to write it down and put it on something that's going to last forever than a piece of paper.
Definitely. That,
you know
yo,
what I mean?
that sounds real
So
peace.
that's what that was.
Yo, Don Pacino, it's always an honor. I consider you a legend, not just among Boricuas, but among MCs in that canon and shit. You know what I mean?
Appreciate that.
And if you got any of his albums and you're not getting in shape, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Don Pacino, his album's out. Is Napalm.
NapalmMusic.bandcamp.com. That's where you can get my whole catalog. And DonPacino.bandcamp.com. That's where you get the new war poetry with me and Bronze Nazareth.
Definitely. And from my host, Don Pacino, I am Sunya Zala, a.k.a. Skilla Straight Low. And as always, this was the Power Right Show. And always, a never respect fake broadcast. Peace.